This is a short film on the very important topic of biosecurity. This is something that we have to take very, very seriously here at the Donkey Sanctuary. The film is divided into 3 sections. Firstly, we will look at how disease may actually be spread. Secondly, we'll explore some of the precautions that we need to take to help prevent any spread. And finally, we will also look at the actions that should be taken if there is an outbreak of disease at any of the sanctuary sites. At the end of each section, you're encouraged to pause the film and to reflect upon the information that has been provided. Make sure that you fully understand any terms and any procedures that may be used or described. If you're watching this in a group, it may help to run over a few of the key points together. Before going into detail, perhaps one of the first questions we should ask is, what is biosecurity? Well, bio means life, and security in this sense means to keep safe. So biosecurity is about keeping life safe. Certainly the lives of the donkeys, but also of other animals, and of course, keeping ourselves, our colleagues, and our visitors safe as well. Essentially, biosecurity helps to prevent further health and welfare issues. It protects the animals, but also people from so-called zoonotic disease, a disease that can spread from animals to humans. And it also reduces the risk of the introduction and the spread of a new disease. Biosecurity helps prevent, protect, and reduce risk. In any large facility where there are animals, there's always the risk of disease. In places where there is just one species, the potential for the spread of disease is multiplied. This is the reason why biosecurity is so important. So what are the primary ways in which a disease may spread? The first is by simple contact between donkeys, particularly during play or during feeding. The second is by physical contact. Stroking and grooming donkeys can assist in the spread of infectious disease by hand and body. To reduce the introduction of disease, we have a new arrivals unit. Newly arriving donkeys are quarantined and screened for infection, including blood tests and cultures, and kept there until any disease present would have incubated. The incubation periods of common at-risk diseases are used to determine the length of time a donkey may spend in the new arrivals unit. Any donkey with suspicion of infection must be isolated immediately with a bonded companion to reduce the risk of spread of disease through the group. The group should be kept apart from other groups with no movements in or out until any risk has been removed. Certain diseases can also be spread via aerosols. These are produced when a donkey sneezes or coughs in a similar way to humans who have a cold or flu. These fine suspended particles can then be inhaled by others. Such diseases can also be transferred by inhaling the air around contaminated bedding and food. Fomites are objects or materials that are likely to cause infection, the most obvious of which is feces. However, saliva, mucus and blood can also provide a source of infection. In a working yard, there are many ways in which fomites may spread disease. Clothes and footwear are easily contaminated, as well as tools and equipment. Farm vehicles moving around within the site are also a potential risk, as of course are road vehicles moving on and off the site. The fourth way in which infectious disease may spread is via so-called vectors. The most common vectors are biting flies. This is a seasonal threat as they die off in the winter, but they can fly long distances, so the threat of infection can come from infected premises a distance away. There are of course other vectors, such as birds and other mammals who visit or live at the sites. As mentioned earlier, diseases described as zoonotic are those that can spread between animals and humans. They can be caused by bacteria, parasites and viruses. Some are notifiable in the UK. This means that there is a legal requirement to report them to a government authority. DEFRA may issue requirements for their control. Make sure that you clearly understand the ways in which disease can be spread. Also, make sure you know what is meant by the term zoonotic disease. One of the most effective ways of halting the transmission of disease is good hygiene. After handling animals or operating farm equipment, you should wash your hands using the gels and the soaps provided. There are numerous hand washing facilities around the sites, and those in public areas even have instructions for thorough washing methods. Reducing the spread by fomites includes disinfecting footwear by using the foot baths. It's always a good idea to wash your boots with water before disinfecting them, as mud and fecal materials from the boots can contaminate the foot bath and reduce its effectiveness. At the new arrivals unit, boxes are kept near the foot baths with all the requisite equipment. They not only include head collars, but also disinfectants, latex gloves, and personal protective clothing and equipment. It's always a good idea to wear personal protective clothing. As a minimum, you're issued uniform when working with the animals, even if the risk is fairly low. Such clothing needs to be regularly washed. Grooming kits and other equipment are stored separately. Each shelter has its own dedicated kit. When the donkeys are moved on, the kits are routinely disinfected. Protective clothing and general equipment will be stored at specific locations. If you can't find them, all you need to do is ask. One final point is that it's good practice to keep foodstuffs clean and dry. This prevents contamination from other animals. There's much to reflect on here, and it's impossible for a short video like this to cover all the aspects of biosecurity, but hopefully you now appreciate the need for good hygiene. Remember to wash your hands and your footwear, keep an eye on the foot baths, and remember to replenish them regularly. Wear the appropriate clean protective clothing. If you wear latex gloves, then dispose of them and any other potentially infected material into the most appropriate bin. Keep equipment clean. Also observe the animals. If you suspect that something may be wrong with any donkey, let somebody know immediately. It's always best to be safe when it comes to the spread of infectious disease. At the donkey sanctuary, we mitigate as best we can against the spread of disease, but we also need to know what to do if there is an outbreak. We operate a traffic light system of green, amber, and red status. A green status means a normal level of risk. You should practice the points made in this video around general hygiene and hand washing. Footwear needs to be disinfected before entering and leaving any facility. Outer clothing and equipment should be kept on the site and dedicated to that premises. Any equipment should be cleaned and disinfected before being used elsewhere. Central yards need to be kept clean and clear of any fecal material. Also, do bear in mind that disease may be transmitted to and from any animals that you may have responsibility for at home. Any potential mechanism for the spread of disease needs to be acted upon. At this point, you may wish to pause the film and look through and discuss any additional notes provided on the protocols around green status. When a farm or unit is moved to an amber level, the measures for a green level stay in place, but additional measures must be applied when entering or leaving the affected area or farm. The farm manager must be contacted before entering the affected facility. Extra care should be taken in hand washing and disinfecting footwear. Latex gloves should be used and protective overalls should be worn at all times. Tools and equipment should be allocated for the sole use in any designated amber area. If possible, it's good practice to allocate designated staff to an area, but if this is not possible, the amber area should be cleaned last in any rota. Once again, it's suggested that you pause the film at this point to reflect and to make sure that you fully understand the practices around amber status. Red status is the highest level of biosecurity. In addition to the measures for green and amber, further measures must be applied as directed. Veterinary services will assess the risk of disease and may escalate the level to red if deemed necessary. The measures will depend upon the disease. Generally, under red status, protective clothing takes a step up. Look carefully at this film shot. Can you relate the clothing worn here back to the section on the spread of disease? The possible ways disease can spread and how we can reduce this risk is worth reviewing at this point. Always remember that disposable clothing should be placed into the appropriate bins, and beware of cross-contamination. So, for example, always take your boots off when you put your overalls on, so that the inside of your overalls always remain clean. If there's a localised outbreak, veterinary services may escalate the status to a red biosecurity level on an affected group of donkeys and an area of the farm. This may be just one stable block. The remainder of the farm will be given amber biosecurity level. The at-risk group of donkeys will be moved to a designated quarantine area on the farm. The part of the farm in which they were previously housed will be disinfected and returned to amber biosecurity level. When symptoms are gone, the quarantine area is returned to amber. The farm remains on amber for an agreed period. Once all the risk has been eliminated, the whole farm is returned to green biosecurity. During a widespread outbreak, veterinary services may escalate red biosecurity to the farm. As infected numbers reduce, quarantine facilities are used and the rest of the farm may be returned to amber. When any symptoms are gone, the farm still remains on amber for an agreed amount of time. On the completion of this time, the farm is returned to green. Once again, you're encouraged to pause the film and spend some time reviewing the last section and make sure that you understand the procedures. In a short film such as this, it's impossible to cover all of the aspects of biosecurity. However, hopefully at least now you can see how important biosecurity is for all members of the Donkey Sanctuary community and its neighbours. Do familiarise yourself with the Donkey Sanctuary Biosecurity publication and use any accompanying resources to discuss and learn more about this vitally important area. If the Donkey Sanctuary is to safeguard animal and human welfare, then good biosecurity practice has to be core to our work.